Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
Allow me to reintroduce myself.
With Mike McGuire.
Stand up, son. Let me take a good look at you.
This guy's a serious professional.
You know what I want to talk about?
Yeah.
Well, the professional wrestling. Do I have your attention now?
Done shilling. I'm done shilling, okay?
Let's get this show on the road.
I love professional wrestling.
Hi there, welcome to the show. It's great to be with you. Thank you for taking the time to sit with us and enjoy some conversation about the crazy world about pro wrestling. My name is Mike McGuire, and if I sound a little hoarse, a little off, I'm just coming off of 2 back-to-back WHL playoff games as in-game host, where it's my job to help get the crowd riled up and do a lot of yelling and hooting and hollering, and that may have been what has put me in this condition here. Also, this is the true episode number 99 of McGuire on Wrestling here on the Celebrate Wrestling Podcast Network and wherever you're listening on the radio. This show has been going on for over 2 years now, which is crazy to me, but here we are and still having a ton of fun doing it. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And if you haven't checked out our site yet, CelebrateWrestling.com. This coming weekend, so coming up April 5th, 6th, and 7th, 2 t-shirts going to be coming out. One of them, you may have a hint with our friends at the alternate commentary table. The other one, going to be brand new. So if you want to support the show that way, it's appreciated. If you want to support the show anyway, CelebrateWrestling.com has details on how you can leave a tip. If you want to subscribe to our shows and, of course, follow us on social media. Easiest way to do that, find the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. We got tons of great commentary up there each and every week, and we talk about all sorts of things, not just what I feel we need to talk about. In fact, I like to let you guys and girls run with the ball and make your decisions on what you want to talk about this week. I did throw one topic out there that we're going to talk about on the show today, and that was because there seems to be a lot of people talking about the faces of companies these days. Who's the face of WWE? Who's the face of AEW? So later on, our friend Joe Aguinaldo will be joining me, and we're going to go through some of your responses on that Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. Other things going on, loads of indie shows happening. I want to give a shout out this week to Winnipeg Pro Wrestling, WPW. They have been on a bit of a tear as of late. In fact, the whole Winnipeg scene, if you've ever heard me talk about it before, I've never been to a Winnipeg show live, but I followed a lot of the happenings, a lot of the talents, a lot of the drama back in the day. Like, there was kind of a lot of everything going on in Winnipeg. And, of course, we know that's where some of the biggest names have either come from or gone through. Anyways, they have a really cool event coming up called Fight at the Museum on April the 12th. And it's at the Manitoba Museum in Winnipeg. And if you're not following them on their social media, you got to take a look at this thing. The venue is amazing for a pro wrestling show. It almost has flashbacks to like WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 5 in the, what's his name, Plaza, you know? And I'm not saying it. Nevertheless, they put on an amazing show, and they've got some great talent coming in. In fact, Raj Desi going to be taking on Matt Cardona at that show. You've also got names like Jody Threat going to be there, Ava Lawless, who are a couple of great Canadian girls, AJ Sanchez, who's one of my favorite big men out there and just a really cool guy, Chad Daniels, who I've worked with on the indies a bit, and a bunch more. So that show takes place in Winnipeg, but closer to where I am here at home in Lethbridge, it's a big weekend for Pure Power Wrestling. They've got a couple of shows, including a couple more ladies who I love watching wrestle, including Kat Von Hees taking on Rhea Von Slasher, as well as a steel cage match for their tag team championships. Kamikaze, who you've heard here on the show, going to be teaming up with a guy named Crude Oil, Cody Mack. How's that for an Alberta name for you? And they're taking on The Brand in Sean Martins and Sydney Steele. That show happens in Lethbridge on Saturday, April the 5th. The guy who was on here a couple weeks ago in the Indie Spotlight, in Kyle Sebastian, has a hair versus title shot match. He could be losing those long locks. And a guy that I'm really becoming a fan of, he actually trained down at the Nightmare Factory, and he's been making a tear on the Canadian Indies. He goes by Scorpius. It's kind of a gladiator gimmick, but this guy's really got something. If you get to see Scorpius on the Canadian indie scene, keep an eye out for him. Hey, if you have a show coming up anywhere let us know here, or again, you can join on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. Always love talking about indie wrestling across the globe and seeing what kind of shows are out there. A quick programming note, next week is episode 100, so looking forward to that with you. And it's also the weekend of AEW's Dynasty, so there will be an extra Yay Boo podcast coming up on the Monday morning for you, recapping that show, as well as getting your thoughts if you're watching the pay-per-view. And yes, the big story came out this past week before we get into the 5 count. Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin being inducted for their match. Immortal Moments is what they're calling it. Steve Austin going to be there as well. In fact, if you go back to the Holiday Hullabaloo 2 on this very podcast feed when Joe Aguinaldo was surprised with a guest visit from Bret Hart, Bret did imply he was going to be at WrestleMania, and now we know why. So there you go. You never know what little nuggets are going to be dropped here on the show. Nevertheless, like we do every week, we like to take you through some of the biggest stories in pro wrestling, slap them together in a little feature called The 5 Count. Let's go.
You want to hear that breaking news?
Well, AEW is set to reveal the brackets for the Owen Hart tournament this week. What is interesting to note, though, is that they have yet to announce where the finals for the tournament are going to take place. Now, traditionally, it's happened just up the road from me in Calgary during the Stampede season. However, AEW right now only has tour dates up to May 28th announced, minus July 12th's AEW All in Texas and August Forbidden Door. So, the question is, will they be coming to Calgary for the Owen, or will they have the finale somewhere else? I have reached out to AEW for comment. I'll let you know anything if we hear it.
You're closing the show at WrestleMania. CM Punk, you are a WrestleMania main eventer.
That, of course, is Paul Heyman from this past Friday's WWE SmackDown saying that the triple threat match between Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk would, quote, close the show, which has a lot of people guessing now. What does that mean exactly? Popular speculation has it ending night 1, but if you go back in the history of CM Punk, if you go back in the history of his interpretation of a main event of a show, and you go to the words close the show, it does open an opportunity to say that Sunday could be the big day. However, of course, there are loaded matches, loaded title shots, and a bunch more that could alter this. We'll talk more about that with Dave coming up in just a few minutes. Saraya revealed on Busted Open this past week that she has finished her time with All Elite Wrestling. And while she has no plans to get back into wrestling right now, she's not ruling it out. She recently had this to say on the Takedown on SI podcast.
You know, next year they have WrestleMania in New Orleans, right? And that's where I debuted. That's where I retire. And then I was like, man, wouldn't that be cool if I get to come back that day too? It's just like that date holds a special place in my heart, and I don't think that would ever happen. But just thinking about it could be really magical. But it gives me a year right now to do everything outside of wrestling.
In other interviews and on her new podcast, she has also said she would welcome going back to WWE and even performing as Paige. Well, this is kind of a fun story coming out of Australia. World Series Wrestling held an event this weekend where Nick Nemeth defeated Matt Cardona for the Internet Championship. Yeah, true story. Cardona losing his Internet title to Nemeth. Nemeth also carries the heavyweight championship for that promotion. Other stars on the show included Raj Desi, Matt Riddle, Danhausen, the Bollywood Boys, Brian Cage, and more. Now, the show is actually up on Triller TV if you want to watch it for yourself. It's listed as coming in at $10 US. And earlier this weekend on social media, Bill Goldberg announced that he has begun training for his retirement match. We did find out last year that it was going to take place somewhere in WWE's schedule. Also, it led a lot of speculation to having people think it was going to take place at WrestleMania against Gunther. That obviously not the plan. With him starting training now, SummerSlam makes the most sense to have that match on that new 2-day event. Question still remains, who will his opponent be? Yeah, Gunther seems to be the popular choice. However, if you've been following this show's history for a while, you know that our perfect pick has been and always will be Dominic Mysterio. Hashtag GoldDom, hashtag Domberg, WWE. There's only one choice to make. Make the right choice. Still to come on the show, we are going to talk to Dave Meltzer about all the things going on in WWE, AEW, and then we talk to you, asking you about who you feel are the respective faces of those companies in 2025. We got a lot more to come. Thank you for being here.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
Legends and Champions is your weekly fix to go old school, looking at the classic world of professional wrestling. From Hulk Hogan to the Hitman Bret Hart to the Icon Sting to the total package Lex Luger. We have it all each and every week on Legends and Champions, part of the Celebrate Wrestling Network. And it's available on a Wednesday with me, Andy Evans. See you there.
It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
From San Jose, California, the one and only Dave Meltzer. How are you, Dave?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Missed you last week, but thanks to Josh Nason for filling in this week. We got a lot to talk about, of course. The wind down for AEW Dynasty is coming up. We have WrestleMania on the way here. I have to ask you, what is the main event match of any WrestleMania?
I mean, if you want to look at it from the two night standpoint, if you want to call the main event and only one, it's the main event of night two.
Yeah.
The main event of night two is the main event, but they consider both the main event. And main event either night is considered the main event of a night of WrestleMania because, like, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and the Usos were considered, having main evented WrestleMania.
Right. So when Paul Heyman says you are closing the show at WrestleMania, what do you interpret that as?
Main event night one. I don't know that for a fact. I will try to find out, but that's how I interpret it. It was, and it's actually what I expected. I expected that they would main event night one, and I don't know if Gunther and Jay will open the first night or open the second night. That I don't know. I think the main event of night two is going to be Cena and Cody. That's nothing anyone from the company's told me, but it's just something that I think is pretty obvious. So, but I'm actually going to check on that today. So I'll see what I can find out.
And the more I think about it, though, the more I wonder because, a lot of people have made the same assumption you've made that it's going to be main event of night one. I think there's still a chance it could be the final match for Sunday.
I wouldn't do it. I mean, maybe. I mean,
but they always load up night two with the main event. So maybe they want to change things up this year. Again, we're just spitballing here, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure Cody and Cena is going to go last, unless they just have this idea that last on night two, unless they have this idea that somehow it's flat and it's not working, because they can always adjust. I mean, when it comes. I'm trying to remember the year, but there was one year where the main event on night one, not night two, but it changed like 4 times, and then it was going back and forth. The last week until like maybe the day or so before. So I was surprised they went on TV to actually say that. That tells me it's locked in because, I mean, like I said, I figured that 3-way was going to be the main event of night one, but I never even asked anyone because it's like, even if they tell me yes, it's like, it can change to the last minute, and they can, and they often go back and forth until the last minute, So, although last year, I would say it was about 9 days out when I got the match order for both nights, and the order didn't change. Although there were 1 or 2 things in the matches from 9 days out that changed, including who won the tag team titles. They had actually, I don't know if you know this or not, but even though Theory and Waller had qualified, the lineup was pretty deadly in the spot and pretty deadly winning the titles, and that was changed.
Really?
In the meeting I talked about it like as it was going on. I said there was a meeting that was going on. I think it was the Monday before, where they were going to make the decision, and they went with Theory and Waller. But I mean, I had the lineup, and it all ended up exactly like they didn't change any match orders from like I said 9-10 days out.
Huh? Interesting. Well, I mean, again, we'll see what happens.
But like I said, other years, the main event of night one has changed multiple times, even in the last week. So it's like there's no rule of thumb,
I just think that Heyman, of all people, would be very careful with his wording. And so that's why when I hear close the show, to me, that's both nights. You know what I mean? So again,
I'll try to find out, but I mean, when I heard that, it was like, wow, they're committing to it. I thought that it would end up doing it, but I didn't think that they would ever announce that because, it leads to people going like, oh, why isn't Jey Uso getting his main event? And it's disrespectful.
Is that how they sound?
You know what I mean? It's like every time the world title is in main event, someone says disrespectful, and it's like, dude, you know nothing about you don't know WWE history and you don't know pro wrestling history because the world title, often does not main event. You put a card on based on what will be the best card. It's like AEW made that mistake on the last one. The main event should have been the cage match or Mariah May and Toni Storm.
Right.
The Moxley, and even though there was actually probably more interest in the Moxley match when I actually look back on it, the reality is that you can't follow that cage match, and you really can't follow a women's bloodbath match like people had never seen with, a wrestling match. It's not even the most interest. It has to do with you don't follow extreme violence with technical. Not that the Moxley and Copeland was technical wrestling, but it was more technical wrestling than Toni Storm and Mariah May. That's for sure.
Well, they made up for that on the Dynamite after, but anyway.
Yeah, they went too far on that one, I think. But
we're going to talk about that in the next segment. But sticking my last point here with the CM Punk possibly closing the show thing here. In my head, I just remember watching back to various interviews and conversations he had talking about. Well, I was there for it, the match against The Undertaker, and they said, well, that's pretty much a main event match right there. And he says, no, the last match at WrestleMania, period. That is the main event. That's what everybody comes for. That's what everybody stays for. So that's my last argument on it, but we're going to move forward. We're going to move forward here because there's another championship match that has a lot of people wondering what's going on. What's going to happen Monday night on Raw with Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and Io Sky here? Because we have this title match with Bianca as the referee here. Is this still going to be a triple threat going into Mania?
I think, the only person that could possibly take out is Io Sky, okay? Because Bianca's in. Rhea's not going to not be in the main event, So it's just, I think it'll be a triple threat because I think people will be pissed off if Io's taken out. And I figure that they'll just probably have a no contest finish, but I don't know. Like I said, Rhea could win. But I think that they'll just do a finish where Rhea's in because it's pretty clear the way the buildup has been that's the direction they were going. But like I said, these things change on a daily basis. Who knows what he'll end up doing.
We're talking to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer, WrestlingObserver.com. This is McGuire on Wrestling on the radio and online, and we're talking all about WWE and, of course, WrestleMania coming up in just a few weeks. And, again, if you want some information on local shows, scroll back in the show in the podcast version at CelebrateWrestling.com. There's some great local events coming up. But this is something that almost had me buying a plane ticket, Dave. And I know what you're going to say already. It's not a real Hall of Fame. I get it. But your thoughts on the Bret Hart Steve Austin match getting the first match induction. They're taking something from their UFC side, bringing it over to the WWE side now. A match induction, Bret and Austin being the first one going in.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, that's a good one. Maybe even the best one. As far as a WWE match, and I think that, it's the best match in my mind in the history of WrestleMania. I don't know. From a technical standpoint, I actually think that some of the Gunther, there was a Gunther Ilya Dragunov match in NXT, and there's been a couple of NXT matches that I think really were blow away. But again, main event of WrestleMania is always going to seem better than, and it was the best main event of WrestleMania. I will take that back because it wasn't the main event. It was the best match in WrestleMania history. And it's funny because it was never supposed to happen. The only reason it happened was because Michaels pulled himself off the show. Bret was supposed to wrestle Michaels on that WrestleMania.
Yeah. And look at the history it made. It's still absolutely incredible. I had a chance to be in an event. Bret was actually walking through the entire match with people. And it was a very limited, very private event. And he just sat there on the microphone and literally walked us through step by step by step. And I swear, I watched that match 100 times. And he still told me things I didn't notice until he explained them.
Well, he's real deep when it comes to wrestling matches, more than almost anyone. That's what makes the guys like him and Kenny Omega is they're so deep. Who else is like that is Foley. They're so deep into the match and they do these little things and it makes for really amazing matches when it all comes together. And it really came together. It was the right match at the right time, the right two people, and that was really, like when you talk about Kenny Omega and Okada, those are really Kenny Omega matches as far as the mindset behind it. And when you talk about Bret and Austin will say it, it was Bret's mindset I mean, Brett's the one who conceived that match. And, and I mean, Austin had to be over like crazy and ready for it or it wouldn't have worked. It's like Brett could have done the same match with 50 other guys and it wouldn't have been as good. But it was Brett's conception of the match on how to do what the goal for the match was. I mean, it was an absolute masterpiece, I think. I mean, like, again, it's my favorite WrestleMania match ever.
Yeah, it's probably mine too. There's a couple funny moments that he talks about when they're fighting through the crowd. And he said that Steve was about to try and go for a suplex on him, and Brett said, "Hell no, we're not doing that." So he turned it around and put him down instead. But It's just, if you ever get a chance to have him walk you through them, I don't know if you have or not, but
I never have.
Oh man, it's literally like watching an artist paint and then explaining how every brushstroke happened. Like it was,
I mean, like
realistically,
that's Brett.
Yeah.
He really was. Brett's like a legit artist when it comes to this thing. He really was. I mean, it's why he's one of the all-time greats.
All right, we're talking about NXT a little bit there. You mentioned some matches. Someone who's, of course, making a lot of chatter in that company right now, Stephanie Vaquer, current double champion, had the 2 big matches this past week. And the question seems to be around Giulia and where she is and why she's out of the picture right now. We've heard injury. We've heard other things. Do you know what the story is here? Is she okay?
I mean, look, everyone tells me injury and WWE says no. So, I mean, if she's not wrestling in the next 2-3 weeks, I would say it's injury.
Right.
She hasn't wrestled since. She has been on shows, but she didn't wrestle, on the spot shows. So before the match, she's losing because of, an injury. And then other people said, well, no, she's losing because Stephanie's super over. So I don't think she's on the actual injury list for whatever reason. But she was still working matches leading up to that match. Like if she was injured, but like Gargano once, I think he had a knee injury and there was a big NXT match. And I mean, he was pulled from everything. He just did the one, and pulled, I just remember that one. So it's like when she was still working a couple of the house show matches, the last couple of weeks, I thought, well, it's not a serious injury because she's working, but maybe she needs time off to rest up, and she'll, that happens all the time. I mean, guys will just go, I'm working through the pay-per-view, then I'm taking my rest. And that could be what this is.
Well, and again, WWE as a whole seems to be more willing to cycle their talent through and give them break periods too. So who knows? But
I mean, no one's indispensable. So it's like you can always do, if someone's hurt, someone has a reason that they can't go, no matter who it is. It's like, obviously if they're in the middle of a program, they're not going to want to go out either. But, it's not like it's going to kill the company. It's not like the company's, it's not like it was, Steve Austin in his prime or Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Them being out is like actually a just monumental difference in revenue.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fair. It's just I know a lot of people are questioning because she's got a lot, especially of fans that followed her from Japan over here, and so people were wondering. Okay, last thing here as we talk about the WWE side of things, we saw the official announcement, Rey Fenix making his debut on SmackDown this coming Friday. A lot of people have been waiting for this, obviously. A lot of people expecting it here. Rey Fenix gets to keep his name. Penta basically kept a variation of his name. Mm-hmm. Is this more a way of appealing to the Latino market rather than worrying about copyrights and things like that?
Yeah,
because these guys had big names already before they ever got there.
So. I think so. Dragon Lee got to keep his name too.
Yeah.
I think if they consider, obviously Ricky Starks didn't. So it's just a question of if they consider something to be to their advantage not to keep the name, then they'll do it. But I think most of the people who come in with names don't change it. Ethan Page didn't change his name. Mm-hmm. But Ricky Starks did. I don't know the mentality because I thought, if you're asking me who was a bigger star coming in, Ricky Starks or Ethan Page, I say Ricky Starks easily. So it's like, what's the reason then? It's like, I don't know. It's just the company decision.
Well, either way, they're making it happen, and we'll see what happens. But I'm very, very much so looking forward to seeing Rey Fenix's debut. Any idea who he's going to face in that first match?
No, I don't know.
Anybody you would suggest maybe from the WWE roster?
Man, I'd have to look up. I would say someone who has experience working with Mexican style on the SmackDown brand. that would be who I would expect. I'd have to look through that roster to, kind of come up, but that's what I would, I'd want someone used to, maybe someone who had been in AEW, but someone who has worked with luchadors in the United States or in Mexico would be the thing. Someone who can make him shine, be a good base for him. The answer is always Mordos, but he's not there.
All right, we are talking to Dave Meltzer. Stick around. More McGuire on Wrestling coming up in just a moment.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
CKXU-FM 88.3 in Lethbridge is Southern Alberta's true alternative radio station.
The cream of the crop! Nobody does it better.
Proudly carrying McGuire on Wrestling every week.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something different to listen to,
This is gonna be a slobber knocker!
check out our NCRA award-winning lineup of programs or stream us anytime at ckxu.com.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
We are back with Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer, WrestlingObserver.com, on the radio and online. Make sure to check out our podcast feed too at CelebrateWrestling.com. We have a ton of great shows that come up for you each and every week, all for free. And part of them is talking to this guy here. Dave, thank you for going through some of the WWE stuff with us here. Of course, AEW, we're going to talk about Dynasty in just a moment here, but you weren't here last week to talk about it. So I have to ask you your thoughts on the spike spot from Moxley and Cope.
I don't think that it was that the spikes were meant to stay in his back, which is, you know what I mean? I think he wanted to take the bump on it. I'm not a fan of that stuff. I'm not a fan of that stuff. I thought it was gross. I think it's very notable that they haven't replayed it. So I think that they, I know they got complaints over it.
Well, they don't have to replay it. It's all over the internet.
Yeah. Again, they came off of a pay-per-view match that a lot of people didn't like. And, both of those guys probably went in there and it's just kind of like, we've got to do something. And I think that, like I said, the bump obviously was planned. The fact that they couldn't get the spikes out of his back, I don't think that was planned. I think that was just stuff that happened that made it really gross. And if he had just taken the bump and gotten up, I don't think there'd been any fear over it either. But yeah, it was nasty. And I don't like bumps on it in the first place. I don't like usage. I don't like that stuff. Yeah. But I've also seen it work. And there's gonna be people who love it. There's gonna be people turned off by it. And it's like you're always it's a risky thing, but AEW's done a lot of that. And other companies have as well. And obviously in their estimations, in the case of some companies and their fan base, it works. But
ratings wise, it was interesting to see. I went through the quarterlies from WrestleNomics and it showed that a lot of people after that tuned out. They were there for
but that's going to happen after the world title match. I don't think that tells you anything at all. And then, the reality is that, you follow up the Collision stuff. The Collision numbers were way up, but guess what? That had nothing to do with this. That had to do with falling basketball. And then the show the next week, viewers were up. 18 to 49 was down. But they didn't have a world title match this week. I think the world title match was, the peak of the interest in that show. Because they don't have world title matches on TV all that often.
Oh no, I meant during that actual episode. So
well, but always when the world title match is over, that's going to go down. And that's the normal pattern. It's not like it didn't go down during the match; it went down after.
No, yeah, and that's
and I would have expected that. Because really that was the main event of the show, and one of the things Tony does is very often he does not put the main event on last, and what's on last ends up suffering for it because it's not the main event. If he put that on last. But he wanted the most people to watch it. It's like, he studies his ratings. He knows what he wants to do. He always puts like real strong stuff up first. And sometimes the stuff last, which should be the main event, isn't really the main event.
Well, let's fast forward from that now and come up to a current day. Of course, Dynasty is on its way. And, it's another AEW pay-per-view where we did a survey, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on our Facebook page, asking, what do you consider the face of WWE, AEW, TNA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And somebody actually said that, great matches are what they consider the face of AEW. So whether people are checking out the TV or not, How do you feel Dynasty, the build up for this show has been, and
it's been rushed. I mean, I thought that they needed to go off of that last pay-per-view because you only had a 4-week build. And like with pretty much the lineup, and here we are, we're really like putting the lineup together. Even in the last week, they're throwing stuff together, and it doesn't like there's nothing for Will Ospreay on the show. I don't know if they're going to add something on Wednesday, but it's too late. That's not too late. You can always do it, but I would have liked to have seen, more. I mean, they kind of got the card together Wednesday, and again, they added Garcia and Adam Cole, no time limit, which, I expected that they would do. So the lineup's not as strong as the last one. So I'm very curious to see how it does. The main event's a good main event, and the Omega match, will be a great match in the ring, most likely. But the last show was something special, and I don't know that they can match that with this one. Just if they can keep, I would say, if they can keep 85% of the audience from the last show, I would consider that a success because that's still well above what they've been doing. If it's 70%, then no, because that's about what they were doing. So you want to see a little bit of growth because overall, all the signs there are slow growth in the last couple of months, after, a long period of declines.
I think from a wrestling standpoint, to see how interesting this could get, the Omega Ricochet Speedball match has me, but I do actually feel that from a character standpoint, even there hasn't been a lot of direct friction between the two, Moxley and Swerve could be probably the most compelling storyline match on this card here.
Well, it's always interesting because you've got the world title and, what are they going to do? I mean, is the plan to go with Ospreay at Forbidden Door? But Ospreay could wrestle either one of them. But then you have the problem of like with Ospreay and Swerve, it's like you have that muffled babyface heel thing. But you know what? That's not really that important. People will go for the match. You could say the same thing about freaking Punk, Rollins, and Reigns. They're all baby faces, So it's like that's not that important. But I think the person who beats Moxley, I really hope it's this great climactic thing, because if not, it's kind of like the run, great creation of a top guy. Because if it's just a title change and then they don't do anything with the new champion, it's kind of like, wow, you spent all that time to build this win with somebody. I think it should be on a big stage and be really big, not just like, oh, it's time to change the title. I think you want to have, and it's got to be the right guy, which
the only other fear I'd have about that match though, is that it becomes the typical Death Rider stamp, which is the Bloodline stamp, which is basically a screwed up finish. And
that's what they've been doing. That's why it's very important to, have the right kind of finish on whenever they change that title. I don't know if that'll be this one or, there's 2 more shows. There's this one and there's, Double or Nothing before you get to All In. So, All In's the big show. If they think Swerve is the guy, then the guy to go to right now, then go to it. I don't know. You've got Omega's got a belt, but I thought like Omega, Swerve, and Ospreay are all candidates for the spot. Probably the best candidates. But I don't think there's, if I was going to pick one, I'd actually be Omega for right now. But he's also the least likely of the 3 to me.
Mm-hmm. We're talking to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer, WrestlingObserver.com. This is McGuire on Wrestling. Thank you so much for being here and listening to us. Coming up, AEW Dynamite set to beat WCW Nitro's episode count. Why is this a big deal, Dave?
It's not. I think that people just got sick of Eric Bischoff, so they wanted something to stick it to him with. But to me, it means nothing.
Really? Because they're making a big deal about it.
Yeah, well, Eric Bischoff's, really been a negative when it comes to AEW, and it's and to Tony Khan in general. All he does is talk about how incompetent he is, and it's like, well, he's so incompetent that he lasted longer than you did.
So you think this is more a dig at Bischoff than it is actually even celebrating the show?
I don't think it would be a big deal at all if it wasn't for Bischoff. No, because who would have cared? But because of Bischoff, there's enough people who don't like Bischoff that it's like, like you talk like you're so smart and they outlasted you, after saying how they're incompetent and they'll never stay in business and all that stuff, and they outlasted you. So, saying they're dead, they could never come back. Well, guess what? I get that. I mean, I remember in the negotiations, there was that thing on social media where, Bischoff was basically saying that they're dead and that no comeback. And he was just like, just wait till the negotiations. And he said it publicly. And it's like, well, wow, I know the negotiations are probably going pretty good because I don't think he would have done that. And then I found out they were over, at that point, the number was over 150. And it's like, okay, it ended up at 185, but it was at 150 at the time. And it was kind of like, okay, everybody, guess what? They're at 150. So, you know that they're going to make it now. And I publicly told people, I said, like, look, all you guys that have been talking about how they're done and this and that. It's like this number is a big profitable number. It's going to be big. And you got, this is like 6 months at least before the thing was there. I go, you got 6 months to get with the program and understand it. And none of them changed. And it's like, okay, you want to be wrong, go be wrong. Now they're, now that's what's happening. They were all wrong. And they had 6 months warning that they could have said, hey, guess what? It's doing better than we thought. And they're going to make it. So, but it's not, I guess it's not as good business for them to be right. It's better business to just, rip on Tony. Tony is so terrible at this job.
Well,
when it comes to longevity, I mean, it's like, Tony ended up running the second most profitable wrestling company of all time. So there you go.
I think some of the critics of Tony, though, are finally understanding, because a lot of them were dead set in the ways of how television was done. And I've heard some people that are
every year is.
I know, but what I'm saying is I'm actually hearing some people that have been the detractors. And I don't have a dog in this fight here, right? Some people that have been detractors have said, you know what? TV is such a mess now. If you get a deal, run with it. And if you have a product that gives consistent numbers, which, like love or hate it, AEW is pretty consistent in its field.
It's consistent.
They're going to make money.
Numbers. It's number 3 on the night, and the only reason it's not number 2 is because of, Fox News is just, so much bigger than it's ever been. And it's harder to beat now than it used to be. So yeah, it's number 3 on Wednesday night out of 135 shows. It's a success. On Saturday nights, you have your hits and misses for sure. It's like there's weeks like this last Saturday where it did a great number. And, there's weeks when they go head to head with this collision. When they go head to head with a WWE show, they get killed, like whether it's a WWE pay-per-view or even an NXT show, they get killed. When they are not going against it, they usually do all right. And they're doing a lot better now. But and it's interesting because I wouldn't be surprised if TNT loses the NBA that that they'll move Collision to Thursday, which would be even better than Saturday. Because Saturday, man, you're always going to go against UFC, and that's competition. There's always going to be, whether it's, college football, NBA, playoffs, there's always, Saturday's always going to be a tough night when it comes to AEW, and WWE runs, a lot of Saturday nights. So, yeah.
Well, I think Collision fans would appreciate that, because I know there's a lot of people that follow our show that actually enjoy watching Collision more than they enjoy watching Dynamite. They just like the wrestling-based presentation. So either way, it's interesting to see what's going to happen. Dave, thank you so much as always. Before we let you go, what are some things that people can read about in your latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter?
Man, this is a big one. This was a really big one. I did a story on George Foreman, who didn't really have a lot to do with wrestling, but was a iconic character, in boxing and in grilling and in commentating. But a big story on him, a big story on Bill Mercer, who was a fascinating person. He was the announcer for World Class Wrestling, but he was a lot more than that. I mean, newsman, teacher, and I go through the whole, I go through the glory days of World Class and his run, as a newsman. And I mean, that was a really fascinating story. Obviously builds for these 2 pay-per-views, business-wise, interest level. WrestleMania interest level is still super high. Even though there's a lot of criticism of the nature of the promos of Cody and Cena, the fact is it's still a high ticket and everything. In Dynasties,
do you think they touch before they get there?
Cody and Cena?
I mean, besides the beatdown that's already happened.
Yes, I think maybe the last week you do it.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering, and I need to find out, like, what the hell's going on. I mean, they shot an angle and they never talk about that angle at all.
You're talking about
They
The Rock.
talk about the beatdown. They sure don't talk about Dwayne.
Right.
No, it's like Dwayne's name is never mentioned, and he was the key to the whole angle. I mean, there's something. I mean, look, I was told there's something going on. I just don't know what it is. It's like, yeah, it's basically exactly what you think is what's happening, and it's like, okay.
Well, what do we think is happening? That's the question, I guess. Like,
well, I mean, I have my speculations, but I don't want to say them. But it's like it's very conspicuous. Everyone's asking why, and it's like, it's like you don't do an angle that big and then like pretend it never happened. That is the weirdest thing ever. But like again, WrestleMania is going to do great no matter what they do. It's like that's a strong match. It's the legend from the past against the legend from the current. And they're positioning that aspect of it. And it's just WrestleMania and WWE's on fire. So it's like, you don't even have to do the greatest build. Sometimes your momentum alone and the name WrestleMania is enough to take it. So, and there's been other years that's happened too. Not every WrestleMania's had the greatest build. And so far this one, I would say, has not. Even though that angle, the original angle on Elimination Chamber, I thought that was fantastic. But yeah, we talk about all that, and that's but yeah, those are some of the ones. There's the coverage of CMLL had that giant show, so we covered that, the El Homenaje show, and all of the international shows and all the TVs and everything like that.
All right, Dave. Well, appreciate you as always. We will talk again next week. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Still to come on episode 99 of McGuire on Wrestling, we talk about the face that runs the place. Who do you think of when you think of the top 2 North American wrestling companies right now? We'll get some of your feedback, and Joe Aguinaldo helps us walk through it next.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
The alternate commentary table, ACT, brought to you by the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Listen, it's Mitch, it's Dimitri. We got this little pod thing that we do every single week where we talk about the week in wrestling and the way in which we do it from the other side of the railing. Right, Mitch?
I like that.
We're coming at it because we love it. We hate it. The alternate commentary table, ACT. Download it anywhere where you're getting your podcasts.
Sure. Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Part of the Celebrate Wrestling Podcast Network on the radio and online, CelebrateWrestling.com, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at Celebrate Wrestling as well. Joe Aguinaldo joins me now. How are you, Joe?
Hey, dude. How's it going?
I'm good. I've got 2 nights of back-to-back playoff hockey in me now with the Lethbridge Hurricanes, so if my voice sounds a little scratchier than usual, that's why.
Nah, it's okay. You're still a sexy beast. It's all good, man.
I don't appreciate that, to be honest with you. I can tell when you're pandering to me, and that was if you were a panda bear of pandering, that was it right there. So that might be a shirt. We'll see. Anyway, we threw up a question on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page, and I found this very interesting coming from the diehard fans because it's a position where we put ourselves asking, who do you think is the general face of a company? As in, if you were to say WWE right now, who do you think of? Who do not just you think of, Joe, but who do the fans think of? And maybe who does the public think of? And so I made my picks, and a lot of people made theirs as well on the Facebook page. Well, first of all, let's start with you. Your picks here. Let's do I had 4 companies here, but let's just stick to WWE and AEW for these.
The 2 that I picked. So I thought WWE was pretty straightforward. It's Cody Rhodes. I think they've done a really good job at positioning him in that, like that lead role. The second person I might put in there, and it pains me to say it because, well, it's just a personal bias, but the only other person I could think of would be CM Punk. Because when he's on a show, that's what everyone's chanting, right?
On that note, I want to get your thoughts too. Meltzer and I just talked about this.
Right.
CM Punk, you are closing the show at WrestleMania. What does that mean to you?
What does it mean to me?
Where is that match showing up?
I'm going to say night 1.
I say the end of night 2. Paul Heyman doesn't mince words. So when you're closing the show at WrestleMania, so we'll see what happens. Nobody knows, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, here's the thing. If it wasn't for Cody Cena, I might agree with that. But I think Cody Cena just from a storyline perspective, from a, everything perspective, I think that has to be the show. Like that has to be the closer on night 2. To me, that is your main event.
And that's what Dave said too, and that's what I think a lot of people are thinking as well. But the funny thing is, they haven't announced, they haven't put in the lineup where.
No, they have,
and they're not saying it either. But
and that's fine. But I'll admit, again, personal bias, I could care less where this match is now.
Well, I think, but here's the thing, though. It goes back to what you just said for your 1 and 1A here for the face of the company. Yeah. I think that will be the determining factor. Is CM Punk the face of WWE? Is Cody Rhodes the face of WWE? Or is John Cena? Because John Cena is still wildly popular among a lot of fans. So,
yeah, and again, I think the other reason too is that, like, okay, let's turn this around a little bit. Let's say John Cena was in that triple threat match.
Yeah.
Then that's the end of night 2. I think part of that night 2 main event thing, the John Cena thing, is huge. I mean, look, even like in the past few weeks on your own show, you guys have said, is this bigger than Hulk Hogan? So I gotta believe that Cody versus Cena is going to be like the last show of WrestleMania night 2.
It'll be interesting to see. Okay, back to the faces of the companies, though. So you're picking Cody or Punk as 1 and 1A. Who's your face of AEW right now?
I have a similar thing. It's either Ospreay or Kenny Omega. Those are the two that come to mind when I think AEW, with Swerve as a very distant third.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
See, I agreed with you on the Cody thing, but even now I almost want to change my thinking. I still think when people think WWE in this day and age, and knowing that John Cena is still around, I think Cena could actually still take that spot if he was elevated to that level. Do you know what I mean? Like if he wins the championship here, he's the face of the company for the rest of the year, hands down.
Right. And let's see what happens. But if you're talking right now, as of like, March 30th at whatever time. Yeah, I gotta go with Cody and Punk.
And then for AEW, I'd pick Tony Storm, because Tony Storm, and that's not a slag on the rest of the show, it's just I know I'm getting something different and special.
Ooh.
Do you know what I mean?
Like it's weird. Like I don't even know if the way I'm going to say this is even correct, but I think Tony Storm is a star. But if you're talking the face of the company, I still got to go with Ospreay or Omega.
I could give you Omega. Omega has been the most consistent. There's been the least amount of drama. If it wasn't for the injury, he would be the most consistent force in that company for sure.
Right.
I think as far as getting eyes on the show, though, I'm still sticking with Tony Storm. And I think once the eyes get there, then I think maybe Omega wins some people over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. I got you there.
Nobody's right here. That's the thing.
Yeah,
nobody's
exactly.
right.
But and look, I will entertain Tony Storm being the face of that company because she is absolutely amazing. So
you can comment on this and a bunch more on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. Just find Celebrate Wrestling on Facebook and join the club here. Blaine says the current feud with Cena is the first time I see Cody Rhodes as the face of the company. And then for AEW, he's saying it's a tough one. He thinks of Kenny Omega because of the Elite and the history there. So that makes sense as well. I don't know if Fraz is serious about this or not. I like the answer if he is. And if he's not, I don't care. Dominic Mysterio. Dominic Mysterio is the face of WWE.
I love that answer.
Yeah. Hashtag Gold Dom, hashtag Domberg. We haven't forgotten.
No, we have not forgotten.
We have not forgotten. That's the match we want for Goldberg's retirement. Okay, and then he says for AEW MJF, which last year I would say absolutely. But
I exactly, and that's the thing. Like, I think just with all the stuff that AEW has been doing over the last year, now thankfully it seems like they're finally pointing the ship in the right direction. But man, it's pretty tough right now in terms of like, who do you consider the top star? Coming into AEW, right? Like you're seeing a bunch of different names here.
Again, we're talking about the face of the companies, the face that runs the place, so to speak, for AEW and WWE. Your opinions, and you can, again, share them on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page or find me at McGuire Show on all the socials. I would love to hear your thoughts. Devin says he agrees with me on Cody, but he wants to swap out the AEW face for Swerve. So he's with you. He's got Swerve Strickland in his top, not the tippy top. Swerve Strickland I could see being that face if we get another really strong run with him. I struggle finding anybody that catches my attention more right now than Toni Storm. And that's not a knock on Swerve either. Again, it's not she's better than everybody else. It's just she does it more. You know what I mean? Like I still enjoy the stuff. So Curtis says Cody for WWE, and he's also got Swerve for AEW. So, the Swerve fans are there. And why not? I mean, he's a good wrestler, great personality, great character.
So I want to highlight our friend Justin's answer. So much like everyone, he has Cody Rhodes for WWE, but for AEW said something interesting. He said, I don't know if this is a hot take, but the face of the company isn't a person. It's just a good wrestling match.
We talked about that with Meltzer too. Yeah. What do you think of that?
You know what? It is a perspective that I understand because, that's where, they're saying this is where the good wrestler or whatever it is. But I'm having a problem. You and I are debating Toni Storm and Kenny Omega and Ospreay. This might be the most appropriate answer. Although, again, I do like Toni Storm as the face the more you talk about it because it makes the most sense.
I think AEW Dynasty, the pay-per-view coming up this weekend, is going to be the defining moment of this because there was a time where WWE was famous for saying, You're going to buy the ticket for WrestleMania. You're not going for who's headlining WrestleMania. You're going for the event. And I think that the more we see AEW, people don't follow along the TV as much, but they definitely still show up for the pay-per-views. And so that tells me that might be the thing where you're not showing up particularly because you want to see one talent versus another. You want to see what the matches are going to be like on the pay-per-view, which is a totally different type of wrestling fandom, but it's not a wrong wrestling fandom. It's like the people that like Collision over Dynamite or the people that like SmackDown over Raw or vice versa, right? Like, I mean, I don't even know what you pick right now for SmackDown versus Raw, other than the fact that at least Raw ends faster. But, okay, a couple more here. Alan says WWE Cody, AEW MJF, and then Andy also says Cody for WWE and AEW. He says, as a casual viewer, no one stands out to me as the face, and that's not a good thing. There's nobody that's the face of AEW?
But again, like, his answer makes sense because let's not even just look at WWE, just look at anything. So WWE, Cody, I think a lot of people know Cody. They know Roman. They've heard of Punk, right?
Yeah.
But, like, you even go to, like, the UFC. Like, people don't watch it, but they'll be like, I know who Conor McGregor is, or I've heard the name, right?
Yeah.
So
these days, not for the best reasons.
No. Fair enough. Maybe that was like okay. Let's take the WNBA. A lot of people don't watch the WNBA, but they know who Caitlin Clark is.
Yeah.
So I think Andy's point about AEW is a solid point for the casual viewer because who is that crossover star? And I remember when I used to podcast about AEW, like one of the things I used to sort of harp on was they've got to build a star above and beyond the hardcore wrestling fan in order for them to succeed.
And that's where I'm curious to see what happens with Swerve, because last time he was champion, we saw him get into all the really wild stuff. We saw the stuff with Hangman and the blood and these sort of things. Moxley went viral with the Spike thing, which is funny. Nobody said Moxley in this thing. I found that really interesting. Nobody said John Moxley.
See, it's weird because, like, to me, and again, as someone who has watched the product since the inception, like, I like Moxley. I think, okay, well, I don't like him as much as I used to, but I used to like Moxley a lot, and I thought he was a good worker. But, like, if you're talking the face of the company, the guy that or girl that represents the company outside of wrestling, Mox isn't that guy. Like, here's another person I'll mention, and he's been mentioned before. Like, MJF for a while was doing movies. He was getting out there, like, in sort of that quote unquote mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hear a peep about him right now, and he could be one of your biggest stars.
Which is funny because he's still on TV, but it's just kind of I don't know. It feels like a holding pattern for him.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it does. 100%.
One more here from Scott. He says Cody Rhodes for W. So, I mean, Cody Rhodes is almost unanimous across the board here. Yes. And then AEW Kenny Omega for Scott. So, again, these answers all make sense. I think that AEW still struggles to be a household name, period. I think among wrestling fans, it's very well known, obviously. That's why we talk about it every week on this show. But for people in general, I'm still having to explain what AEW is to a lot of people. And that's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is. We all live in a niche world now where whatever we know of as the thing is the thing. What do you know pro hockey as? The NHL. What do you know pro football as? The NFL. What do you know pro wrestling as? WWE.
WWE. Yep.
Right? It's got that lineage, but people have heard of AEW or they've seen it, or maybe they've even seen a viral clip going like, what is this guy? I had to answer that question so many times this past week in the last 2 weeks here with Moxley and the thing. It was like, holy. But I think that as long as the company is thriving the way it is, the biggest thing they can do is get, like you said, that star that elevates themselves almost beyond the brand. And I don't think we're there yet with anybody.
No, like, again, I think you and I had this conversation before. Like the closest, not even the closest, the people that have that outside appeal right now are still Dwayne Johnson and John Cena in the WWE. Right? There's no one that comes close, with all due respect to everybody else.
And we don't even know if Dwayne Johnson's going to be coming close again. Who knows?
No, who knows?
Put him on the back of a milk carton. Have you seen this man? All right. Well, Joe Aguinaldo, thank you for your input as always. Thank you to everyone that also commented on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. Again, join it. It's all free at CelebrateWrestling.com. I know that the guys in the GWO over at the alternate commentary table, they're chomping at the bit for these shirts to be coming out. They are going to be coming out this week. So we'll have more details, CelebrateWrestling.com. Limited run. The GWO shirts are coming back, and we got another one coming out that'll be up for, let's say, the month of April at least, and then we'll go from there. But, Joe, always appreciate you. Next week is episode 100. If you have some time, wouldn't mind if you joined. And other than that, that's it. Thank you very much for listening and letting us do what we do. Till next time, play safe, drive safe. Abyssinia.
McGuire on Wrestling. Online and on the radio. Listen to the show Mondays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at CKXU.com, wherever you get your podcasts, and at McGuireShow.com.